So today, as promised, we just got the final trailer for Bendy the Dark Revival, showing more gameplay, story, and characters than we've ever seen before from this game. And this trailer really did not disappoint. I mean, there is genuinely a lot to cover. So let's go over this trailer scene by scene and break down all the hidden lore, secrets, and Easter eggs within this trailer. Okay, so the trailer begins with, surprisingly enough, Audrey in the real world, working at her desk at the non-cartoon world of Joey Drew Studios. She seems to be an animator at the studio, like Henry, working on a frame of Bendy. And considering that we actually see her outside the ink machine's influence, it seems likely that we will actually get to see how she ends up in the inky version of the studio and what that actually is, whether it's a physical place that exists or some sort of afterlife or even a different dimension. Next up, we get to see what the studio looks like for the first time outside of the ink world, all dark and creepy with a portrait of Joey Drew down the hall. And here I think you can really see the BioShock influence. Like, this looks directly out of BioShock. The lighting, the colors, it's very clear where TheMeatly was drawing his influence from here. Now next we can see this old man, with one blind eye looking at Audrey while he says her name. And from a bit later on in the trailer, we know that this guy's name is actually Wilson, and it seems like he is the one who turned her into an ink creature in the first place and brought her into the ink world. Now there are several reasons why I think this. First one is, if you actually look behind Wilson in this shot, you can see the signature pipes and gears of the ink machine, meaning that he is the one in possession of it, and is most likely the one who inked her. And in the shot right after, we can see Audrey examining her inked body, and clearly freaking out, as any reasonable person would do when turned into an ink monster. Also, behind him we can see Bendy cutouts and posters for some sort of documentary movie about the life of Joey Drew, reading, Archgate Pictures presents The Man and the Demon, which indicates that these real-life segments come later in the timeline, perhaps closer to Henry's era, as I doubt any company would do a retrospective piece like this on the career of a man that is still in his peak. Which then begs the question, who is this Wilson guy? Because if he both has the ink machine and these posters for a film looking back on Joey Drew's life in his room, then could he possibly be the one who took over Joey Drew Studios after Joey Drew kicked off the new CEO of the company? This actually isn't the only evidence for that, which we'll get to in a second. Next, we hear the voice of Wilson claiming that he banished the ink demon for 211 days, or 211 iterations of the time loop, quite possibly, and that in return he wants Audrey captured.
Attention, children of the machine. For 211 days, you've lived without the ink demon haunting your steps. I banished him away. In return, I ask just a little favor. There is a stranger. Bring her to me.
Whatever his motives for this are, we don't know, whether it to be experiment on her or kill her or something of the like. In the next shot, we can also see a lost one, killed and strung up on a wall with a bag over its head, and the message, Demon Follower, scrawled beside it. So based on what Wilson is saying as the shot is shown, it almost seems like he's having any ink creature who worships the demon, and possibly any ink creature who isn't completely loyal to him, killed. More on that in a minute. Alright, next shot, we can see the Heavenly Toys department once again. So it seems like we will be revisiting some environments from the first game, but my god, does this look a million times better than it did back in Chapter 3. Not just the graphics, but the environment is so much richer, and there's so much more to notice than there was back in Bendy and the Ink Machine. Next are two shots of employee lounges. One seems to be a sort of old-fashioned bar area, and the other a rest area specifically meant for artists. And if this is actual gameplay footage, then again, everything just looks so much more alive and dense than it did in the first game. Alright, next we get a bit of clarification about who this Wilson guy actually is. In this shot, we see these two posters of him taped up on the wall, and they almost seem to be these like 1984 style Big Brother is watching type propaganda posters. These claim that everyone can now relax because Wilson vanquished the evil ink demon. He will find a purpose for everyone, which could possibly imply that he is forcing everyone in the studio to follow his rule and give them brutal jobs. Now think back to what I said earlier about Wilson possibly being the guy who took over after Joey Drew died. If in this ink world Wilson killed the ink demon and then gave everyone a purpose after that, I feel like that's a pretty strong metaphor for that, as it's pretty obvious at this point that the ink demon, while not containing directly the soul of Joey Drew, is definitely a stand-in for him. So Wilson killing the Ink Demon and then taking over the studio could parallel the real life event of Joey Drew dying and then Wilson becoming CEO. Okay, next we get to see some enemy attacks. First we get a look at the Butcher Gang, who looks so much more animated and disturbing. Then we get to see a new guy. Well, sorta new. This big tanky searcher fellow was revealed a few years ago in the 2019 trailer. And now we can see what he actually looks like. Based on his build, I'd assume he will end up being a boss in the game, or at the very least a super tough enemy. Next we can see Audrey climbing up a wall, which definitely seems to support the idea that this game will have a lot more interactivity than the previous installment, which I am pretty excited for. Okay, next we can see Audrey put her gent pipe into this weird cylindrical thing. Now we know from the first trailer that there will be some sort of workbench upgrade stations in this game, and this pipe seen here also has more pieces on it than the pipe seen in the trailer, like this little power cell thing. So we can assume that weapon upgrades are definitely going to be a thing in this game, and that Audrey upgrading her weapon is probably what she's doing here. Having upgrades in this game is pretty cool in my opinion, because I feel like it expands on the gameplay quite a bit, and will probably make combat way more interesting. Here we can see the Lost One character from the last teaser who says, "Thank you very much for your help," which seems to imply that there will be side quests or some sort of tasks that you can do for this character at least some point in the game, which will again add to the gameplay in a big way. Next we can see some sort of creature that kind of looks like a cross between a nun and Penny Hemsworth from TheMeatly's failed game Showdown Bandit. This nun character says, "Almost everyone here can't speak or is completely mad." So this seems to hint towards this character running some sort of insane asylum for the ill or mentally insane, which would fit in line with her being a nun. Then you get an example of this in the next shot where we hear a voice yell, "Kill the stranger," referring to Audrey, as she is called a stranger several times throughout this trailer. The person saying this also sort of sounds like evil Alice Angel, and the silhouette shown in this shot vaguely resembles her too. So could this be where Alice is hiding in this game, locked up in this asylum run by these nuns? Next we can see a Lost One looking at Audrey and saying, "Nobody wants you here," again reinforcing the theme that everyone here is against Audrey by the bidding of Wilson. Also, notice the way he said it. It's almost phrased like she's new in the studio and he's telling her to get out while she still can, which is further backed up by Alice finding Audrey and offering to help her, while Audrey's still confused and scared like she hasn't been there for very long as opposed to Audrey, who's more of a studio veteran. Next we get a shot of Ink Bendy's shadow, and he looks a lot more like Monster Bendy from Chapter 5, accompanied with the line, "Above everything else, stay away from the Ink Demon," with Audrey responding, "What's an Ink Demon?" To which Alice says, "He likes to smile, and kills everything that moves," which is kind of a cringe line, but okay. So whatever Wilson did to contain Ink Bendy clearly didn't work for very long, because now he's back on the prowl and hunting Audrey like everyone else in this game. Dang, this chick just cannot get a break. Then, right after that, we see a hand clawing its way through a door, which looks to be Ink Bendy's hand, based on the size of it and the single white glove. Next, we see the Butcher Gang members all clustered up around a pillar, looking as horrific as ever. Then, right after that, we see a wall with the text on it, "She was the fourth," with a Lost One kneeling beside it. Now, what could this possibly mean? Well, if you remember back to a while ago, TheMeatly confirmed that Bendy in the Dark Revival would feature a fourth Butcher Gang member. So could this possibly be the fourth that is referred to here? Whoever this her is the fourth member of the Butcher Gang. Alrighty, next we get a bunch of rapid fire shots. Battle with the Lost Ones, Audrey climbing a ladder, Lost Ones being born from some sort of steaming hole in the ground, more vent crawling, Audrey opening a door, and finally, evil Alice Angel making her big return with an updated look and a freaking machine gun. How badass is that? Also, I should probably mention that the reoccurrence of old and previously dead characters does mean this game will take place over the course of an older iteration of the time loop. Maybe we'll even run into Henry, who knows. The final two shots of the trailer before the title card are Audrey using her powers to absorb a searcher and pulling a lever, and then jumping on top of a Lost One from high above to attack. Then, at last, we get to see Perfect Bendy. He is sitting on the ground playing with a toy train. His demeanor is very similar to that of a young child, similar to how he acts in all the Bendy and the Ink Machine cartoons, or is depicted in this photo from Joey's house at the end of Chapter 5, as a young child, with Alice and Boris being the older parental figures to him. So this implies something pretty dark. Could a child, possibly one of the employees' kids, have been sacrificed to the machine to create Perfect Bendy? It certainly seems likely. Now, finally, we got a release date. Thank Meatly Jesus, we got a release date. And it's actually soon, like in this century soon. November 15th, 2022. That's this year. Not just this year, that's 2 weeks from today this year. I cannot tell you guys how excited I am to actually play this game and talk about it on the channel. But until then, the trailer looks awesome, the game looks awesome, it was almost worth the wait. Alright, so this video was like the quickest video I've ever put together. Like, I just cranked this thing out. Mostly because I'm just so genuinely hyped for this game. Like, it has been so long since I've genuinely been so excited for a video game to come out. But Bendy the Dark Revival, that's the exception. And 2 weeks. We get to play this in 2 weeks. But yeah, join the Discord server, please. It's either in the pinned comment or the description or both. Subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff I pretend not to care about. And goodbye. I will see you in the next video.